One of the most time-consuming parts of planning the Cotswolds Way is figuring out where to stay every night along the trail. So here's a quick rundown of everywhere I stayed and if I would stay there again. The trail begins at Chipping Campden and I stayed at the Volunteer Inn. It was pretty comfortable, had a very lively atmosphere, and other walkers were also staying there. This is actually where I met the girls I ended up walking with for the first few days. It's also located right on the main road near the start of the trail. They have an Indian restaurant on site for dinner and a really good breakfast. I would give this an 8 out of 10 and I would definitely stay here again. For my second night, I stayed at Rookery Farm in a glamping pod, and while it was cute and comfortable, it was not great for the Cotswolds Way. There's no food on site, it has a hot shower but no soap or towels are given, and it's located right near Broadway Tower, which means you don't get very far on your first day of walking. I give this a 5 out of 10. I think it's great for a weekend away from the city, but not great for Cotswolds Way walkers. My third night, I stayed at the Rising Sun Hotel in Cleeve Hill, and this was first of many Greene King hotel chains. It was pretty good, it was right near the start of the trail, room was a good size, and it had a good breakfast. I didn't really spend much time here, but I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Next, I stayed at the Royal George in Birdlip for 2 nights. This is also part of the Greene King Inn's family. It had a very friendly staff, a good restaurant area, it was very lively, the rooms were decent, and it was not far from the trail start, although you do have to walk down the road a little bit to get started, which is not ideal. Everyone I met on trails stayed here in Birdlip as well, so I don't think there's a lot of other options, but they do have a good breakfast. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. In Painswick, I stayed at the Falcon Inn, and this was one of my absolute favorite stays of the whole trail. My room was really nice, the bed was really comfortable, it was in a great location right across the street from the Painswick church with the cool trees. Because it was a nicer hotel, the food was a bit pricier than others, and they seemed a bit understaffed, but I would absolutely stay here again, 9 out of 10. The next night, I stayed at the Stonehouse Court Hotel, and I loved this one as well. It was beautiful, historic, the rooms were really nice, it had really good food, very friendly staff, and it had the best breakfast I had of the entire trail. Now, I give this a 9 out of 10 because it was a bit off the trail, and I actually Ubered to the start in the morning to save my feet some, but I would absolutely stay here again. The next night, I stayed in Dursley, and I couldn't find a lot of options, so I ended up booking an Airbnb. It was decent, it was a really small room with a shared bathroom, but it was near town and provided toast and cereal for breakfast. I give it a 6 out of 10. The next night I also booked an Airbnb, but this one exceeded expectations. The room was really nice. It did also have a shared bathroom, but it had a super comfy bed, provided everything I could ever need. She literally thought about everything. It was near enough town to get food, and it was very near the trail start in the morning, which was super ideal. 8 out of 10. My last inn on trail was the Cross Hands Hotel in Old Sodbury. This was another part of the Greene Kings family, but it wasn't quite as nice as the others, and it was a bit off trail, although it did have decent food and the rooms, but it was not my favorite stay of the Greene Kings hotels. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. The next night I stayed at the Toghill House Farm. I have really mixed feelings about this. It was cute, but there were no dinner options nearby, so I had to order in food, which took forever. The room was really nice. It had really great amenities. The owners were really friendly. It had a really good breakfast, but it was about a mile off the trail start, and it was hard to find on foot at the end of the day. I think it's a great place to stay if you have a car, but it is not great for the Cotswolds Way, and I probably would not book this again. Instead, I found a B&B the next morning when I was on trail, very close to this one, but literally on the trail. It's called Hill Farm, and I would probably book that one instead. And finally, I made it to Bath, and I stayed at the Edgar townhouse. It's a huge city, so you have a ton of options, so I just picked what worked best for me. My room was decent. It was in a good location. I only ate off-site, so I never had their food, but it was in a nice building, although there was no real atmosphere in it. Overall, I would give it a 7 out of 10, and I would consider staying there again. And just for curiosity's sake, in London, I stayed at the Paddington Park Hotel. I picked it because it was close to the Paddington train station, which is where I needed to be. It was actually really nice. The staff was really friendly, and I loved all the natural lighting in there. A great location near Kensington Gardens, and again, really close to Paddington Station. And on my return to London before flying out, I stayed at the Bob W. It was definitely interesting. They have no staff on site. Everything is like self-check-in and all done through your phone, basically. The room was really nice, and the coffee there was great, but there's no real amenities on site. They're a huge chain, so I'd maybe consider staying there again now that I know how it works. It's definitely an interesting concept, but I definitely think it's geared more towards frequent travelers. So yeah, that's everywhere I stayed. I hope that gets you started on your research if you're deciding to walk the Cotswolds Way, and happy travels.